Hey team, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian, core design engineer with Brunswick Bowling, and today we have an extra special bonus content episode for you guys as we take a look at Radical's comparison chart. We're going to put the new Evil Eye and the new Intel Recon up on the chart and compare it to the other products currently available in Radical's product line. Before I do that, I want to make sure that you're aware we have a Radical rundown that does a real deep dive on the shape of the core and how the finger and thumb intersections really change the post-drilled numbers. So make sure you go to Radical Bowling's YouTube or Facebook page, check out the Radical rundown with myself, and check out that deep dive. It's probably a 10-11 minute video, but it is worth it because it gives you all the information you need to really understand what's happening with the technology there. So I'm not going to get into all that on this video. You're welcome to look for that yourself. But the other thing I want to mention is Steve Freshour, the resident core designer for Radical Bowling, was on last week's episode of Perception versus Reality podcast. You're also able to find that on Radical's YouTube page under the live tab. So make sure that you check out Steve. He actually did some see-through ball cutaway images where he shows you the CAD, same as the drill sheets. And he actually gives you some bonus layouts, some examples of what would happen if you drilled a core in a way that's not on the sheet, just to give you some examples and some tech data. So if you really want to get into the weeds with this one, there is plenty of content available for you to check out. But for now, we're just going to do a quick overview of the layout sheet. As I stated, there are 6 layout options available to you, and they're categorized by performance strength. So the strongest asymmetrical layouts after drilling are going to be performance enhanced drillings, PEDs. They're going to put the pin way up relative to your fingers, and they're going to hit the nose in the front of the core with the thumb hole. By drilling out that front axe nose, you're reducing the width of that core, so you get way more intermediate differential after drilling, and the total diff is going to be high because of the pin placement as well. Dropping down a category, you have performance control drillings. These are still very asymmetrical drillings, and they just offer a little less differential and a little less asymmetry than the previous category, but certainly in the asymmetric category of ball motion with a short, sharp hook window for you, despite the fact that this ball started symmetrical. So these are going to offer a little more versatility and a little less flare potential for a wider range of conditions still in that asymmetrical line of ball motion. And finally, we have symmetrical continuous drillings, SCDs, and this is where things get really interesting for this core. Now we're using a theoretical PSA. Remember, this ball is symmetrical, so it does not have a marked mass bias or marked PSA marker before you drill it. But if you measure on the ball 6 3/4 inches through the CG on the line from the pin through the CG, 6 3/4, and you mark the theoretical mass bias, then you can swing that with the drilling angle just like you would with an asymmetrical ball. So rather than putting the CG in line with the thumb as you would with the previous 2 categories, in the SCD symmetrical category, what you're going to do is use a really short drilling angle, kicking that CG way out by the VAL. And what that does is it places your thumb hole directly between the front knob and the intermediate knob. It started symmetrical and it ends symmetrical in these layouts. And what you get is a much longer hook window, a much more smooth and continuous motion down lane, and a much more traditional symmetrical shape. Of course, this is still an incredibly strong cover stock, HK22C solid, that's really aggressively sanded. So this is going to be a big symmetrical ball when you use the strong continuous layout. And if you want a little bit of flare reduction and a little more control overall, then you can use the versatile continuous layout to give you a little less flare potential. Now, all of these layouts, you do want to tweak for your own particular PAP to make sure that the thumb ends up in the correct place. And that goes for all of the layouts on the sheet. This drill sheet is based on a 5/3/8 up PAP. Use the numbers that are given as a base layout, and your PSO, if he is a good Pro Shop operator, should be able to make quick little adjustments to fit your PAP perfectly and still get the thumb to intersect the material of the inner core where it belongs. That should be no problem. Even though this core starts with a very middle of the road or 0.45 total differential, it can jump all the way up to 0.57 in total differential with a whopping 0.22 intermediate differential to make a very strong asymmetrical bowling ball. And it can also be in the low 40s in total differential with 0.07 or 0.09 intermediate differential, which is very squarely in the symmetrical range of drilled ball motion after drilling. So that wide range of flare potential and hook window options is really staggering, so you really want to make sure that you check out the drill sheet to get the one that you want for your game and the conditions that you bowl on. And if this technology wasn't enough, Radical is offering another offering for a cleaner, smoother, weaker option in the lineup if this is all a little too much for the conditions that you bowl on. That is the Intel Recon. It's the return and a slight revamp of the original core that everyone loved so much with the original Intel. That's a 248RG with an 032 undrilled total differential, and that one does jump up in total diff and int diff a little bit too with pinup layouts, even though it's a much more subdued core. This one is very much in the tour style of core ball motion, and this one is paired with an HK22 pearlized cover stock that is compounded, but despite that, it's not a clean and whippy ball like you might expect a pearlized polished cover stock to be. It's actually still pretty archy and round at the back of the lane, which is great for ultimate control, for burn conditions, for high friction, or even for blending more medium to medium light patterns. It's not going to be enough ball, and it might be a little too skiddy or squirty on heavier, fresher conditions, but as long as there's enough built-in mid-lane friction or worn lane surfaces, then this one is going to be right at home. So we'll jump over now to the comparison chart and take a look at where these two balls fit. I alluded to the ball motions of both of them already, but obviously a little visual will never hurt. Radical fans are very familiar with the layout of this chart by now. It is sorted by oil volume that the balls are built to handle on the x-axis, with the strongest balls toward the right side of the chart and the weakest balls toward the left side of the chart. With response to friction, it's on the y-axis, so the sharpest responding balls are toward the top of the chart and the smoothest responding balls are toward the bottom of the chart. You'll notice as I zoom in here that this Evil Eye is both super strong and super sharp. Now, this is with what I would call a generic or neutral layout in mind for charting all of these balls. You guys know by now with Radical, the after drilling numbers can substantially alter the ball, especially with the asymmetric cores with the big noses, such as the Guru series and even the Torpedo series. And we have a very similar situation happening here with the Evil Eye as well. So assuming that you have a relatively strong, slightly asymmetric layout on this Evil Eye, such as a strong performance layout B on this one, this is where I'd put this on the chart. Of course, if you're going with one of the symmetrical continuous drillings, it's going to drop this one just a little further left on the chart and maybe a fraction down in response to, because it lengthens the hook window, but it's still going to fall neatly between the Torpedo and the Guru, and honestly maybe nest itself with a symmetrical layout more between the Guru and the Power Hitter. But the general placement on the chart still remains the same. It's not going to dramatically shift because the strength of the cover and the strength of the box finish are also at play here. If you have one of the strongest asymmetrical balls in Radical's lineup, such as the Guru Oracle or the Outer Limits Solid already, I do suggest putting a symmetrical layout on this one. It's going to be a nice complement that is just a shade cleaner and certainly more rounder and continuous at the back of the lane relative to those early strong mid-lane reactions. It would be a great number 2 ball as a step down if you are a matched or speed dominant player. If you are a rev dominant player, then the Evil Eye is probably as much ball as you could possibly need. It's already pretty aggressively sanded, but it still has a relatively sweeping and continuous back end motion. With a slightly asymmetrical layout on it, I think that this is plenty of ball for the most handed players on even the highest of oil conditions. However, if you are looking for a ball that is a little more smoother, continuous, and a little more versatile, then a strong symmetrical option is going to be plenty of ball for the handed players as their number 1 ball out of the bag with more medium launch angles, and then looking at something more angular like one of the shiny asymmetrical balls as a step down option to get into the pattern and open it up a little bit better. So regardless if you're speed dominant or rev dominant, there is a layout and a place for this Evil Eye in your bag, but regardless it's going to be toward the strong end of the bag no matter what. Jumping over now and taking a look at the Intel Recon, it's kind of on its own little island in this chart currently. The next closest thing to it is a compounded No Doubt Solid, but you'll notice that the Intel Recon is even a step weaker and even a step smoother than that one. But when I say smooth, don't think that it doesn't lack for punch, because this one still does go through the pins relatively well. The trick with the low differential core cover pairings is always getting them to finish and not be too weak that they are still trying to hook and end up deflecting at the pins. And this core cover pairing strikes a really nice balance of being archy and controllable but still assertive through the pin deck. So the fact that the response time is low and smooth and continuous for this Recon doesn't mean that it is a weak contender or that it's like an entry-level ball by any stretch of the imagination. I think hard arc is a really good explainer of what the shape of this ball motion is. Even though this one is a step weaker, there are plenty of situations in today's modern conditions and environments where this one is in play, whether it be wood lanes, old worn synthetic panels, or simply just your proprietor or local center does not put out as much oil as you need, or if you're a rev dominant bowler who tends to shy away from some of the big, strong, asymmetrical balls in the Radical lineup, the Intel Recon is going to be right at home in your bag. Alright, we're going to cut this one off right here for time. As a surprise to absolutely no one, I ran a little longer than I meant to, but there's just so much to talk about with this Evil Eye core and the technology to make it a symmetrical ball or an asymmetrical ball. And of course, there's so much to talk about with the motion shapes of two really stunning symmetrical balls in the Radical lineup. I think this is the best 1-2 punch of symmetrical balls I've seen in a long time out of the Radical lineup. It has been a while since Radical has brought an absolute head-turner must-have ball, and I think the Evil Eye is that. And of course, if you had good success with the Intel in the previous iterations, then that one will be high on your considerations list as well. Makes your buying options a little bit tougher, but hopefully this information helps you make the right decision for buying the ball that belongs in your arsenal. Before I go, I do have a question for you. Comment down below. What was your favorite ever Radical symmetrical ball if you had one? I think this Evil Eye is going to be an absolute winner for many people for a long time, and I will personally be drilling one myself as soon as possible. If you have any questions or comments about how these two fit into your arsenal, any questions or comments about the new layout system, don't forget the sheets are in the box. So if you have any questions about the layouts, make sure to get on radicalbowling.com, check out those layout sheets, and make sure your Pro Shop operator is aware of them and checks those out, because this technology is very different. This isn't just a standard symmetrical ball in the Evil Eye. However, standard layouts have been working on it really well as well. Your after drilling numbers might just be a little different than you expect for standard symmetrical balls. So wrapping it up, if you have any questions, comments, or follow-up about the Evil Eye, the Intel Recon, or your personal arsenal, or where they fit in your personal arsenal, feel free to drop a comment below. I've already been fielding questions about these plenty on Radical Bowling's Facebook and YouTube page, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have right here as well. Until next time, I will see you in the next video.